Haunted Indigo here with something a little different. So I had some people ask me on social medias how I set up my lighting, what my camera settings were, so I decided to make a video about it. Alright, first off, what I'm doing here is, it is a 4-point lighting system, and yes, I am including the shadow lightings as part of the 4-point. Actually, this could technically be, let's see, this is shadow number 1, number 2, so that's 2, filler light, 3, 4, I guess this is more of a 5-point system, a bit more complicated, but hey, whatever. So, let's see, let's talk about these first 3. The candle light. Of course, I don't have the candle particle in there yet. Didn't want to put that in there because sometimes particles lag up recordings. So, not going to put it in there for this one. These are what? Wow, proper grammar. These 3 are illuminating the subject matter. This is like the quote-unquote spotlight, if you can think, if that would make it easier to think of it like that. And it doesn't, these 3 don't have to be up close like that. It's, you gotta look at the scene and think, where is the brightest light source coming from, and how can I use it to illuminate the person of interest? So, with this it was relatively easy because it's close to his body. So just kind of stick them where the candle would be, put them out in a couple directions, and boom, you got it. Now, the reason why I didn't just do kind of a fill light, if you will, and just take out shadows, is because it doesn't look great. Let me see if I can demonstrate. So let's just say I went with light 1, disable shadows. Let's just, as you can see, everything kind of goes flat a little bit. You can still see some shadows a little bit, but it doesn't look as complex as I had it originally. So let's just undo that. So yeah, this adds a bit of complexity to the image, which I like, but if you prefer it the other way, you can do it that way. There's no, well, there is a right and wrong way to do things. It's just when it comes to lighting, it's a little bit easier. Lighting is one of those things where it's tricky when you're first learning how to do it, but once you learn the odds and ends of it, it becomes easier to kind of skew the rules, and certain rules can become guidelines. But for the most part, it's best to have something like this. But if you can make it work other ways, good on you. This is how I prefer to do it. Alright, so we've covered the main highlight. Now, let's take these out briefly. Can you please go away? So, with this lighting it still looks pretty good, but let's talk about this one, the moonlight. So this one, again, I looked at where the next brightest natural source of light was, and I said, where would it realistically fall that I could get good illumination? So now let me show you exactly where I placed it. It would be right there, kind of, not really on top of the moon exactly, but kind of in line with it. And I couldn't make it too far away, otherwise, well, kind of fades out. And I want this to be, let me just reset it. I want it to be kind of like the second spotlight, if you will, the second thing that says this is our subject matter. think of it as kind of a second metaphorical arrow saying, hey, subject matter, right here. Also, it acts as partial filler, so that's nice, gives this a lovely glow, illuminates this, and separates it from, oh, whoops, didn't mean to make, come back, you two. Here is the fill light. This is the light that the scene would naturally be. Now, obviously, the background is a lot darker, but that's just because I wanted to make these two pop. I also wanted to make the headstones pop a little bit. So, this serves as the light that would be there regardless of if there was a vibrant light source or not. Kind of like how, oh, it's a good example. Even without a moon, there's still a little bit of light from just the stars, light sources from far away, you know, light pollution. If that makes any sense. So, that's what this is. Now, 6 and 7 are my shadow lights. Now, shadow lights are a little different than regular lights because you disable the shadows for them. And that gives you, and this acts, well, let me think of how to word this. So disabling the shadows, it no longer really casts a shadow. So you can use it to fill up spaces that shadows cause, i.e., you know, this from the hand, this right here, this little area up here from the folds, this area over here where the highlight, it doesn't hit, you know, this area in here. You know, that's what I do. There are some maps where you don't really need to do this because it has such good lighting. You can just put in a couple of highlights and you're done. But I prefer to use them whenever possible because that's just me. Alrighty, now that we're done with lighting, let's move on to the camera. So this is how I have my stuff set up. Let's look at focal distance. Aha, 69, the meme number. So for this one, I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to be honest, I don't like putting the focal distance directly on the character because to me it makes the edges look a little bit too sharp. So what I do is I usually kind of draw it back a little bit, not too far off that the character becomes blurry, but far enough off that you just start seeing hints of the blur. And it gives you something like this if it'll load up. Yeah, there we go. As you can see, there is a little bit of pixelation, just a tiny bit, but it's not as bad, and you also get this nice kind of, you know, this is still the subject matter. He's very clearly defined, and this is background. It's a tiny bit blurry. This is a little bit blurrier, but because of its bright color contrast, it still pops. So that's that. Now, this is the thingy that determines the blur. Actually, let me set this a little bit farther forward. This determines how blurry it is, how blurry it's not. Yeah, I'm just going to mess around with it a little bit. Let's say I wanted to do something super out there, like that. Let's give it a minute because I have some other settings that are slowing it down, which I will be showing. Let's see here. Let's say I wanted to do something like that. you know, just bring it all the way up there. Of course, I don't really want to do that, so I'm just going to set it back to what it once was. Let's bring you back down there. Now, tone map scale. This is what determines the lighting that was already in the map. Let me just, can you, thank you, camera. So, having it set here to default, it's pretty dark. However, you bring it up, hey, looky there, it's pretty bright. So let's bring it back down to, let's bring you back down there. Alrighty, that's that. Bloom scale. This determines kind of the light's glow. It doesn't really show up or translate all that well in posters I've found. So if you really want to make it pop, you gotta really bring it out. So I might do that a little bit, but not too much because, you know, I don't want it to be like super unrealistic to the kind of like off glow that would naturally occur. So let's just bring you down to about, I'd say there. And now these three. I really like these three because these three work with, I guess they add more complexity to the shadows, add more shadow, that kind of thing. So this does this. Kind of determines where the shadows land, its shape. Strength determines how dark the shadows are. Pardon, didn't mean to spike there. And radius, well, that determines that. So now with the camera, this part of the camera out of the way, let me move into this part. Now, I don't usually mess around with these too much unless I'm animating, but that's a completely different story. Depth of field quality is what I mess around with. Normally, it's set at something like 1 or 0, but I set it to 12. Let me show you what it looks like. Set to 1. Alrighty. Okay, not bad. Not bad. Could be better, but not bad. Now, let me show you what it looks like set at 12. If it'll load. Yeah, as you can see, it does add a bit more quality to the photo, or the poster, whatever you want to do. It can also be applied to animations, so yeah, unfortunately, if you have, I guess not really, I don't want to call it a toaster, because most toasters can't really run SFM very well. I know because I tried to run SFM on a toaster for years. Some computers, even though they're built for gaming and that kind of thing, Source Filmmaker just chews it up. So if you start noticing lag or anything like that, you may want to take this down to like a no lower than a 6, I'd say, give or take. Another thing that determines image quality is render settings. Now, normally, it's set to this. However, if you want something really nice, you set it to these. Now this one, I've noticed that you could set this one to 64 or 128 and it still look okay, and you can even, if you do have a computer that Source Filmmaker just lags up to nobody's business, if you're on a computer that just lags whenever you run Source Filmmaker, stick with this one. Or this one. Like, these two are still pretty good quality, and they don't take as long to render, but I usually set my stuff to 1024. Now, ambient occlusion. This is an interesting one. I usually leave it selected because, well, you know, normally nothing's really affected by it. But let's see. That's basically what it does. Sorry about that. Somebody knocked on my door. Anyways, sometimes you need to deselect this because some models will just render partially invisible if it's selected. I don't know why, but that happens. Anyways, that's my quick little on-the-spot tutorial. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care and bye-bye for now.